Here we are, live.
I'd imagine this happens to you, gentlemen, now and again. You ever get the part of a song stuck in your head and just have it be inescapable to you for a certain amount of time?
Yeah, all the time.
I don't remember when I heard it. I knew the song already because I had listened to the album. But the new Miley Cyrus single is called Jaded. And the song's fine, but the chorus is burrowed in my brain and I can't escape it. And I've tried to play it to maybe get it out of my brain, but it doesn't do it. I'm totally
like
stuck.
That wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You tried someone scaring you.
Like I have hiccups or something?
Yeah, like someone like
I have not.
Coming from behind a corner.
Oh.
When you listen to a song and like you like a song, are you listen to it on repeat, sort of like right after itself, or just like in an overall playlist where generally you're listening to it often?
I'll make sure a little bit of both. I won't do the thing where it's on repeat over and over and over again. I'll listen to it a few times, but I'll put it in every playlist that I have, like whether it's the running one or the walk the dog one or the car one or whatever.
I feel like you could get over it pretty quickly if you just listen to the song like 17 times in a row, and then you might not like it after that, but it'd probably leave your head.
I don't know if I want that. I like it.
Yeah.
It went right from the new Olivia Rodrigo song, and the fucking Miley song came in and just fucking butt it right out of there. Get out of here. Now it's stuck in my head. All right. We ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's do
10-year anniversary part 2.
Part 2. It just keeps going. We go on to the 11th year anniversary. We'll just start it all over again. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS, and is brought to you by Body Bio. Get 20% off any Body Bio order with code Mike's Tummy at bodybio.com. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, for Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners, go and get engaged. Briggs Auction, the official auction of the process, briggsauction.com. And Kinetic Skateboarding, which has your last chance to get the Ricky 10-year anniversary gear. Sunday is the cutoff, I believe. Double check. On the show today, 10 years, as we have found, takes a lot of time to go through. So we will finish the memories from Ricky X, including Burnergate, the lottery party wedding, Chuck Klosterman getting mad at one of our listeners, COVID, and the Kawhi shot. Also, everyone posted their favorite memories in the Ricky Reddit. We'll go over that as well. Also, as much as we try to forget it, the James Harden hostage situation continues. There are still some free agents remaining, and the Summer Sixers, believe it or not, are still playing. Summer League is the longest thing ever. I can't believe it's still going on. Before we get going, I did mention the Ricky X gear. There are two things. There's the long sleeve, which is pre-sale and is on sale until Sunday, with the Grateful Dead theme, the Not Dead Yet. We've never done a long sleeve before, 10 years on the sleeves. It is kind of a psychotic shirt, but it's my favorite one that we've done. So you can go to the link in the description of this pod, or go to kineticskateboarding.com and search Rights to Ricky Sanchez. And the print that Abby did, which is 8x10 on very high quality paper. We found the highest quality we could find. 8x10 has 48 Ricky and Sixers mentions. There are different references in it. There's a key at kineticskateboarding.com, and I think there's 40 something of those left. We only made 250. That's $25. The long sleeve is $49. So go to kineticskateboarding.com. And final thing, Amos Lee playing with the Philly Orchestra at the Mann Center on Thursday. At the Mann Center. It's going to be sick. He's done these orchestra shows a few times, and they're always great. Mann Center, great place to see a show. We have $10 off tickets, but that also just goes through the weekend. Go to Ticketmaster.com, find the Amos show, and the unlock button in the upper right-hand corner, just type Ricky. Ricky is the code. It unlocks some tickets that you get $10 off of. There's also one section where with the $10 off gets you into the show for $3. I think it's like the back, but I mean, what else are you going to... Cheaper than a movie, cheaper than a coffee. So that is at Ticketmaster.com, code Ricky. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
Larry, sweetie, the man is here. Whoa! We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights To Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who's getting older by the minute. That is one Mike Levin.
Rapidly.
Yeah.
Skin's getting worse. All of it.
Did you say your skin's getting worse?
Yeah, I'm out in the fucking sun. This is crazy.
Oh, because of the picketing. Were you using fucking sunblock?
I'm using a ton of sunblock, and I have a big dumb hat on. But
okay,
you know,
I saw the hat on Instagram.
You can't do it. There's still, it's not impenetrable.
Yeah.
Still getting through.
You and Alyssa look like you're going on instead of picketing, it looks like you're on a safari or something. Yeah.
That's the vibe. Yeah. We're 70 something days, almost 75, I think, days into the strike. Mm-hmm. The actors are joining us now.
Yep.
So soon it'll be Sixers fans.
I saw Ron Perlman threatening to burn down the houses.
That fucking ruled, dude. That kicked so much ass. I loved it. Hell yeah.
I wouldn't suggest anyone.
Oh, no, I definitely would. I 100% would. Because there was an anonymous quote. So there's no one that unless they have to say, like, I gave the quote about, I hope writers go homeless.
We are not endorsing burning down.
Oh, I'm endorsing actors saying that they will burn down anonymous execs' houses. 100%.
Oh, boy.
100%.
Well, none of our listeners should do that. Absolutely not. Do it of your own volition. I'm coming on after you said again to do it. And I said, do not threaten to do that unless you're Ron Perlman and you have a legal team behind you. Before we get to the 10-year anniversary stuff, because we only got to like 2017 or something in the first episode, a couple of quick Sixers updates, unfortunately. There's a war of reporting, Mike, in that one group of reporters continues to say that James Harden is resolute in his desire to go to the Clippers and still be traded, and he has thought it all over, and he's calmed down, and he's met with Daryl Morey, and he still wants to go to only the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And then there's a group that's like, you know what, Sixers want to keep him. They're going to keep him. I think the Sixers are going to keep him. So I can't tell. I mean, I assume the Sixers are going to keep them. Leaks come from the Sixers, and the wants to go to Clippers leaks goes to the Clippers. I cannot see any other way of this going, which is the way that the Harden and Morey relationship had to finally hit when Harden for Morey shows up at camp in the fat, I don't want to be here, chaotic way, and they finally just trade him. I think that's the way it's got to end.
Maybe. I mean, to not foresee that as like a very large probability.
Yeah.
I don't know about them trading him, but at least him coming into camp, throwing a fit.
Yep.
And there's already a picture of him with your guy Michael Rubin, looking in the big fat shirt.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want. He's not wearing like a shirt that shows his abs.
No.
He's not in a crop top on draft night.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, this seemed like this is the way it would go, to go like, I don't know, maybe there were just so few options that there was nothing else that they could do, but it's an unpleasant situation. The thing that is starting to make me go like, I don't know, is that Joel wants him back.
You think he really does?
I don't see what reasoning he would have for saying he does and not. Like, he could just also not talk to the press. Joel always doesn't talk to the press. He's very good at avoiding that. So I think it's like he really does believe it. And so then the like absolute demented part of my brain goes like, maybe they're going to like do it together. and they're gonna fucking that is the like motivation that they need to like restore both of their reputations and stuff. And then I
Is to
turn that part of
leave?
my brain off. No. Like they're gonna
Oh.
try to like avenge themselves essentially.
Oh, right.
But I mean, we were saying like my concern. I don't think you shared the concern, but of like, here's another hostage situation that Joel's gonna have to deal with. It's gonna be another circus. If Harden doesn't want to be here, Harden, screaming at Terquavion Smith in practice to just bully him because he just wants to throw it, enough of a scene that he gets out of there. And Joel then asks for a trade. But I guess the other version is they trade Harden for role players, and it's Joel having to do all of it himself. And that is the thing that makes him ask for a trade. So I don't know how many great options there are.
This feels like a bigger topic, but you brought up Joel and his desire to have Harden back, and we've had this voicemail sitting here for a while. 833-LIFACE is the number. It's worth bringing up, I think, at this point.
Hi, this is Anthony from Newtown Square. So Damian Lillard is not interested in Philadelphia, but wants to go to Brooklyn potentially, or hitch his wagon to Wembayama and the Spurs. You got to trade Embiid. Look, if it's one thing for Bradley Beal to not be in Philly, but Damian Lillard just saw the Nets get swept by the Sixers in the first round of this year's playoffs, Game 4 without Embiid, and he'd rather go there. Embiid's not bringing anybody here. It's done. It's done. You might as well trade him now, shock the market, get the value, get the picks. It's over. Hi, Anthony again. Just want to reiterate, Embiid is the reigning MVP. He is the best player Damian Lillard will ever play with in his entire career by far, and he doesn't want to play with Embiid. That's fucking insane. Like, does that register to people? I'm sorry. It's done. You can't keep Embiid if nobody wants to come play with him. I hate it too, but clear all the books. Just go to the library, burn all the books, clear every single book. All the books are done, and just start it over.
So while I don't endorse trading him, it is a little disconcerting, I think, that he does not seem like he's almost in some ways as a player like center Harden. Like you go there and everything revolves around him. But the thing that he doesn't have that Harden has is Harden seems to find a way to ingratiate himself to his teammates, at least a lot of them. Whereas nobody seems emotionally invested teammate-wise in Joel. So is there any concern that Butler didn't have any trouble getting out of here? Obviously, there are other circumstances to all of this. Harden doesn't want to be here. Lillard doesn't want to be here. We've not heard not one time have we heard of another star saying, I want to go to Philadelphia, except for Harden, who wanted to go here because of Morey, who wanted to leave after being here for a year and a half. So is there a concern there that Embiid is just not somebody that other great, like sort of primary offensive players want to play with?
No, I mean, not for me. Like
Okay.
I think there's so many other bigger concerns that you could take them one at a time and go like, well, Dame wouldn't want to come here because he's, Harden is here. And so the idea of like, I'm going to go play with as like the third guy between those two very ball dominant players. It's not like they had a ton of cap space or it just doesn't, if it was like, I don't know, if Harden didn't exist and it was just Maxey and Embiid and Dame could go like, I want to go there.
Well, theoretically, Harden
The idea
would
of like
leave.
displacing Maxey, I guess in Miami, it makes more sense because he's like, there's a hole there. Like Gabe Vincent left, Kyle Lowry's 1,000 years old. Like, there you go. I step right into that. And it's also just like, I don't expect Philadelphia to be a destination for players. I think they want to go to like 3, maybe 4 places.
That I agree with, generally.
And so it just doesn't bother me. And the idea of tearing it down and going like, okay, we're going to get all we can from Embiid. It's just
I agree with you. That's a non-starter to me.
It just doesn't make any. We're already here. We hired Nick Nurse. We Daryl's here. Like, there's not. I'm assuming several more stops on Daryl's tour to try to win a championship. Like everybody's going all in here, and to go like, okay, we're gonna get rid of Embiid and start the rebuild. You go like, they're already down so much. We talked about this after the playoff loss, but like, it's just it doesn't make sense to do it now.
No.
As much as like there is obvious risk in Embiid getting hurt or just not working or whatever, but like it's more likely that Embiid and whoever makes a run at deep playoff contention than it is that whatever you get for Embiid, even in like 5 or 10 years, is as good as Joel. Like, it's just so unlikely that happens.
Yeah.
So
the whole point of doing
you just
it
got to
is
see this through.
The whole point of doing it is to get somebody as good as Embiid.
Absolutely. So,
Right.
I think the fact that they've had, I really am starting to get at least excited by the idea of what Nick Nurse will try.
Sure.
And making it look different, making it more just so easily predictable. Not to say that I think that this team is going to do anything as currently constructed. They are less athletic than the staff of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. But like, at least something. At least the coach is like, I'm going to be mad scientist guy. It's like, okay, cool. That's something. Show him, like,
Yeah.
There's no reason why
There's
no reason. Look at like almost every MVP ever. There's no reason why Joel Embiid, after 3 straight top 2 finishes in MVPs, should not have more playoff success. There isn't. Like, he needs more help. It's hard to do that around a center in the modern NBA, but like, he's good enough on both ends to where like a better coach with a little more help on the personnel side should be able to get him places.
The Rights to Ricky Sanchez is brought to you by LL Pavorsky Jewelers. I could say a lot about LL, but this person actually said the best.
Hey, Spike, Mike, and CJ. This is Sticky Wizard. I previously broke the Paul Reed does not pick up his dog shit story. But more importantly, I was also, I think, listener 327 to buy an engagement ring from LL. I don't think it was talked about much on the show because that was the day after the Sixers got eliminated. But I am just calling to endorse every goddamn thing you guys have said about that man. I was totally out of my element, didn't know what I was doing. And just like you guys say in the ads, you call him and he just rocks you like a baby right to sleep in a good way. I felt so much better after talking to him, and I'm actually opening up the box right now in my car. He sends you not just the most beautiful ring you've ever seen that totally outdoes any other option I had, but there's a T-shirt in here. There's a pocket knife. What?
I didn't get a pocket knife.
Just, if you are getting engaged, go there. Just don't think about it. Just go there.
Pocket knife. I have to talk to LL about that.
Yeah.
If you want to buy an engagement ring from LL, make an appointment. Reach out to him first, just like that gentleman did. 215-627-2252. Lee at llpavorsky.com or tweeted him at LL Pavorsky. Over 330 Rights Ricky Sanchez listeners have purchased engagement rings from Lee. Also a supporter of the charities that we support, Mama T's Community Fridge, Providence Animal Center, LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
He picks up his dog shit and he'll pick up yours.
Before we get to Ricky X, Jaden Springer is finishing up Summer League in a positive way. And you had been, though you were very positive on Jaden Springer up until this point, you had seemed to me during Summer League sort of coming to the realization that he had not added the requisite skills that you would have liked him to. Yeah. Have the couple of good games changed your view on that at all? Or is it just, it's the end of Summer League and he's the only one trying?
I think there's some of that, but it's more a willingness to just like, because he has nice touch. Like he shoots a soft ball. We talked about Jonah Bolden last podcast, who shot the hardest ball in the league. He shoots a pretty soft ball, and so he's just got to be willing to rise up off the catch pretty quickly. And I do think over the last couple of games, he has shown a more willingness to do that, and he has a real knack, especially for a young guy, that it's pretty rare in that kind of player that he's as good at drawing fouls as he is. He's a pretty good foul shooter. I think he was 11 for 11 the time before the game before. He looks all right. He's still very young. He just has to be willing to. He has to know what his role is going to be in the NBA, and play like that. And it's a little bit harder in a summer league atmosphere. You hear a lot about big men that, like, good big men don't benefit from Summer League because there's not capable guards arranging the offense and getting them easy shots, and they're just a lot of like chucking going on. Springer's a little bit like that in the sense that he's the guy trying to do too much that wouldn't be happening in an NBA atmosphere. And so as Turk Smith has stepped forward and as DJ Stewart has played pretty well, and Javonte Smart, like him doing a little bit more role playery stuff, even on a team that he's a little bit overqualified to do that for, like is more of a like what his NBA role would be, even in like 10 minutes a game. And so it's been pretty good. The athleticism is still very impressive. When he loads up, he can just block anybody in the league. It's wild to see how high he can get and how strong he is as he goes up. So I still believe in the package. I still believe in the idea of like a guy with that kind of skill set as a combo guard, as like a D'Anthony Melton type. He's just got to be able to shoot off the catch, and he's got to know that is what it has to be. And I'm sure people are telling him that because there's no way they're not, but it has to sink in. Like, you're not going to be doing isolation stuff,
right,
in the NBA. Like, you can attack a closeout for sure, but you really need to just be like, I'm going to shoot off the catch. I'm going to run my ass off in transition. He really is a unique defensive player. His strength and quickness and athleticism is a unique thing for like a combo guard, and I think they could use it. Go ahead,
comparing him to Thibault, like defensively, Thibault always seems so slight.
Yeah,
like could be pushed around, and Springer does not seem like he could get pushed around. He's got a big bottom side or whatever. Like he definitely seems a lot stronger and more capable in that way. So.
Yeah, I mean, he should be in the mix for a rotation spot, and all summer long, someone should be passing him the ball, and he should be shooting it. That's what he should be working on. It's like B-Ball Paul should be working on lobs. Jaden Springer should be working on just catch and shoot threes. Don't even do anything else. You're strong enough. Like, your handle can improve over time, but like that's what's going to get you playing time. The playing time is going to be like, are you willing to show up the three? And I think like, I don't know. You tell me how you feel. He seems more confident. He's certainly a better offensive player than Matisse ever was. Has a lot more comfort on that end. You never saw Matisse even trying to like break somebody down off the dribble.
Yeah.
And he really has that. Jaden has that sort of Evan Turner type mid range. He likes that little fadeaway. Like that's the concern of him as like a good player. But like we drafted Evan Turner at 2. Jaden Springer was like a flyer we took at the end of the first round, and he's an excellent defensive player in a way Turner wasn't. He just got to be able to shoot off the catch, and I think I started to see it over the last couple of games, sort of similar to Tobias. I'm sure that will go away.
Yeah.
And he'll revert back to his like regular instincts, but they need this kind of athleticism and juice on this team, and I would love for him to provide it in the short bursts here and there.
I agree with your position that he is more skilled offensively and doesn't look nearly as clueless or out of place as Matisse did offensively. My concern when watching him is that everything he does offensively is slow. It looks slow to me. Like the shot looks slow, the handle looks slow, all of it looks slow. So I just wonder when push comes. It's like this weird thing with him. You talking about him being athletic. He is, of course, but there is something really like tedious about him offensively that I think. So we'll see.
For sure. No, I agree with that. I think that that's true, and he just has to get used to like impacting the game in quicker bursts and moving the ball and getting rid of it. You want to talk about the other some of the guys, or should we wait till not Ricky 10?
We'll have to wait till not Ricky 10 because we still have.
Because I have thoughts.
Okay,
we'll save them.
We'll save them for next time. So on June 18th, 2017, this is a clip from.
But yeah, I think the Celtics pretty much at this point we're like, we like our backcourt. We were the best team in the East this year, record wise. We're not in a position where we feel like we need to rebuild or even like turn the keys over to a 19-year-old kid. I understand the rationale. But if they're just like, yo, let's keep building for the future, let's keep accruing assets and try to make something happen with a Paul George or a Jimmy Butler deal. see where they're coming from. I understand, but this doesn't seem like enough for them to move down in this draft.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. I think as much as
3 to 1 is a huge jump.
As much as it pains me to do this, and it really does, do you think maybe to make this more fair, if Ainge is listening, I don't want to do this really because the guy, the elite post skills, but do you think we should throw in Okafor? I mean, do we really want to do the deal if we have to put it in Okafor? Look, if that's what it takes, but if Danny Ainge is listening to this, you know, the guy, would you call them generational post skills?
I mean, it's 11 a.m. on a Sunday. He's probably waking up right now, getting 20 and 10.
That was when, just before the trade had become official and retweet Armageddon was enacted, and we were saying that the Sixers were not giving up enough. The Celtics were not getting enough back for the number 1 pick that would become Markelle Fultz, as they took Jason Tatum with the number 3 pick. Didn't work out as we had planned.
No, it didn't. But it's a perfect thing for a retweet Armageddon to have been about. I thought that was thought that was your we're fucked.
Oh no
Fucked
no
situation about the Celtics.
No, I'm not.
Which is funny because, you know, so many things have changed since then, and yet almost nothing has changed.
Yeah, right.
The picks did swap, and then they did trade up for number 1, and we did draft the perfect player to fit between 2 other very specific kinds of players, and then it didn't work out for us.
The Fultz thing, I think there's been we've mentioned this a bunch of times. There have been so many crazy things that have happened. I think we've lost the context of how crazy it was when it happened.
Yes, that's right.
And it's hard to put myself back.
It's the thing that breaks my heart the most of the whole thing, of this whole era, is Markelle.
Markelle. So there are 2 moments where I think about us being the most excited, because I was going through this audio, going through video clips. One was when we ended up with the number 1 pick in the 2016 lottery party, which is one of the craziest pieces of video ever. We got Simmons. And the next one was when this trade happened, and we were like, here it is. And the craziness of the Markelle Fultz thing, even the, you know, when he came in for the visit, and I think we had Derek on right afterwards, and Derek was like, yeah, he shot really bad, but it really doesn't matter.
I remember this.
And there's all these little breadcrumbs along the trail.
Very well, good storytelling.
Yeah. In Summer League, you were like, hey, looks good, but doesn't shot look weird or something? And then it was, I believe, the scrimmage that they did at the Palestra or at LaSalle or something, or Drexel or wherever it was. And they do the scrimmage that is only Sixers players right before training camp starts. And that was when Fultz's shot looked like totally broken. And everybody was like, oh no.
I was also there at Summer League, sitting right there when, if you remember, Luwawu, I think it was Luwawu that fell and then kicked Fultz in the face as he slipped or something like that. Something happened where Fultz fell and then kicked Luwawu in the face, and then they both were out, and I was sitting there being like, what the fuck? Everybody's dead. I was really 20 feet away from that as it happened, and maybe had I done something, everything would have changed.
It's such a bummer, man.
It's
the
such a bummer.
Fultz thing is such a bummer.
I talk about it all the time. He was the perfect player there, and it is the most the Sixers made many mistakes on their own.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Okafor pick. That's a big one. Letting Jimmy walk or trading him for Josh Richardson, the Al Horford signing, the Tobias trade and then extension, that kind of thing. But those are preventable mistakes and that happens. Things don't work out. You know, the Warriors took James Wiseman and still won a championship.
Right.
But man, there's nothing they could, we've been talking about this a million times, but there's nothing they could have done. Maybe they could have known that something was weird going on and they shouldn't have gone all in for a guy with something weird going on.
Well, I think they knew that after they talked to him, but they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I think as people tell it from within, there was a faction of people who were like, oh no, we should reconsider this.
Yeah.
So
that breaks my heart for him and for me.
So the next summer on May 30th, I believe the day after it actually happened, this was what the Rights to Ricky Sanchez sounded like.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Burner Mike Levin, along with a guy who empathizes with Brian Colangelo quite a bit for searching for his name on Twitter and responding to it. Spike Eskin, how's it going, buddy?
We've been doing this podcast for 5 years, and that's the first time that you did the intro. It was
Well, it's a
spot
special
on.
occasion. It's a special occasion. This is crazy. I know that
so
we're
crazy.
now what, 17 or 18 hours into this world, into this burner world. But man, it is not, my senses are not dulling in any way. It's not easing into like reality yet. It still feels just as crazy as it was when I heard about it. How are you taking it in?
I've gone through several different emotions. It's strange because normally when a Sixers thing happens, the first time I really talk it through is with you on this podcast. Now, luckily, I think it's actually a positive that I've had a chance to talk to, I talked at work about it. I talked to, Angelo, and I talked to everybody about it. And because last night when I found out, I fell asleep on my couch at 7:45 and I woke up at 9:15 and I looked at my phone and I had this sort of like number of text messages you get if you just got a new job or somebody died.
An
or
alarming number of text messages.
Way too many for me. And a bunch of DMs. Is this your Christmas? And one of them had the link and I read it. And I got to tell you, man, it's a really weird story to read in a haze.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell because it's on the Ringer. It could be funny. It could be like a Jason Concepcion piece where they're kidding. Is this serious? And so it has taken me from last night to this morning to right now to sort of suss out where my feelings are. And I'm still not settled. I went from confused to, I just burst out laughing at around 9:30 this morning about how funny it was. Then I got mad that it seems like our free agency summer is now like fucked in a lot of ways, maybe, probably.
So then how many weeks later? 1 week later, June 7th.
On the show today, we friggin' did it. Total maniacs, wouldn't let him get away with it. And Brian Colangelo forced to resign from the Philadelphia 76ers today. Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I am Spike Eskin, along with a guy who can finally find a new slant and move on. That is Mike Levin. Hi, Mike.
I was getting pretty disenchanted with the podcast, I have to say. I was tired of doing it. I didn't want to have to keep doing it because I couldn't move on to big boards while this was still happening. I couldn't act as if it was business as usual because it wasn't and it's not.
Yep.
And now he's gone and we can all find our own slants in life.
Yep.
And it feels great. I'm happy that it's over. I'm happy they finally made the right decision. I do think that if we look back in a couple of years, we won't remember this like week and a half.
Yeah, but we
it'll
still
just
had to go through it, like
we did have to go through it, and living in that purgatory of like, I'm not sure that they're going to do this, and then finally doing it. It feels good, and it's fine. They made the right decision. I do think that they wanted to get away with it.
Yes.
I do think that they wanted to just be like, can we just not fucking have to deal with this?
They did want to get away with it.
Really
My
did.
question to you is, if the Burnergate had never happened, would the Sixers be in better position now or worse position?
I have no idea.
If Brian Colangelo stayed as the general manager, would that have been better off?
Probably not.
No? Maybe?
Embiid probably would have been gone by now. He probably would have been tired of this fucking guy.
He was a Ben guy. Brian Colangelo.
Brian was, of course.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, the Burners will have told you that.
Yeah.
He wanted to step on a medium-sized ladder and punch Joel in the face. What a story.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I heard myself in the past saying if we look back on this in a few years, we might forget. And it turns out I don't forget any of it. I forget everything else except for that.
Well, that week, so it went from May 29th to June 7th when they finally fired him.
Yep.
It did seem after they had the law firm that specializes in
these kinds of things. Yeah.
These kinds of things. It does seem like, even in retrospect, that they were trying not to fire him. Like most of that week was us being like, come on, you got to fire him already.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
It was a really long week.
It was a really long week. I think somebody from someone that has worked for that law firm, I think at some point reached out to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, years ago. I probably shouldn't even say it, but I don't remember anything about it. So plausible deniability. But like, it was just really good, man. Just really good, really juicy stuff. Like, there's been a lot of like, oh, the Sixers took the wrong player and they tried to kill Zaire Smith. Oh, fuck. Okay. Like that's a, and then, oh man, that several guys couldn't shoot and that's tough. But just having there be just a purely, almost fully non-basketball, but also not like toxic workplace culture, sexual harassment or something. Like this was just a fun story. You don't have to feel bad about it. You just go like, this is wild. And I'm glad it happened. I'm glad we got to experience it and podcast it. It might have been the height of the podcast. And just really adds to the fullness when you look at the full picture of the Sixers over these last 10 years since the Bynum trade. The full of like, there's something in every corner. The whole picture is like, the whole picture is really cleaned out because people that don't care about basketball can like sink their teeth into that story also.
Yeah.
And
it's a human story.
We certainly did for sure.
Also the irony, and I think I'm using irony correctly, in the league forcing out Sam Hinkie because of him unprofessionally running the basketball team.
Yeah.
To be replaced by a guy who was hired by his father.
That's right.
After essentially not interviewing anybody.
Well, 75 people very quickly.
Right. Shamefully getting fired for ripping not just having burners. There's nothing wrong with having burners, but there's nothing against the rules, but on those burners, ripping his own players, suggesting we were keeping charity money. There was just so much.
Leaking like medical information.
Yeah. Unreal.
We should say that his wife Barbara was blamed for it. Just to close the circle on that, but it's still on him. And it is funny. And to me, because of that irony, the fact that like Adam Silver has never apologized.
Yep.
To the city of Philadelphia, to us in particular, for forcing a Colangelo onto this franchise and then allowing that Colangelo to like straight up just hire his son without any interview process and him pretending like he recused himself.
Yep, he wasn't even part of the process.
He wasn't even part of the process. He said, take me off the email. I'm going to connect you guys, and I would like you to take me off the email so that you can then talk amongst yourselves, and I'm pretend like I'm not here.
Move me to BCC.
Get me in BCC, and I'll find out who we hired at the press conference. I can't wait to know.
Weird. You happen to hire my own son.
My boy. We do deserve an apology. I still want one. I will never forget. But I'm glad at that, at least for us and for just storytelling at large, that it did happen.
So that kicked off a very busy summer, which we will get to, or was part of a very busy summer. Something actually happened right before that. We'll get to that right after we talk about Body Bio. Got to go to bodybio.com. Go there right now and I'll tell you about a couple of the products, but know that every product there you can get 20% off of by using code Mike's Tummy. That's right. All one word, Mike's Tummy, bodybio.com. We chose Mike's Tummy because Gut Plus has been a salvo, is that the right word? Has helped out Mike. It is really the only gut supplement you need. If you're taking a probiotic, it doesn't harm you, I'm sure. But the thing about probiotics is that there are so many strains, hundreds of them. You need the exact right one for your body to work. Well, What Gut Plus does is it allows your body to produce its own correct probiotics, getting rid of those symptoms, the irregularity, the bloat, those sorts of things, by knocking out the bad bacteria, allowing your body to create the proper probiotic bacteria that makes you feel better. If you only got to take, you take 1 or 2 a day, depending on what you eat?
Yeah, usually 1 or 2.
There you go. Take Gut Plus or Elite, which we've both been a fan of. It is the hydration solution. Forget about those drinks that are different colors, that have artificial sweeteners in them, maybe have sugar in them. All all Elite is electrolytes. That's it. You just take a capful of it, put in your water in the morning, put it in the evening, and it keeps you properly hydrated. It's not just water. You need electrolytes too. Go to bodybio.com. That is bodybio.com. Code Mike's Tummy for 20% off.
Turn me into an influencer.
Yeah. Well, you're heading there your whole life.
Finally. That's my vibe for sure.
Yeah. Bodybio.com, code Mike's Tummy. All right. So a couple weeks before the Colangelo thing, I actually did this out of order accidentally. We had our lottery party. Now, lottery party ended up, started at Miller's Ale House, then moved to Buffalo Wild Wings, and then very quickly moved to Xfinity Live, where we had a few thousand people there. To me, there are 2 highlights of the lottery party, which I love. The lottery party, raised tons of money for our charities, was just a great bonding experience. One was getting the number 1 pick, but the other one, in 2018, we had never really thought about having the lottery party while the Sixers were in the playoffs, had never considered it. And the lottery party came after the Sixers had lost to the Celtics. And Robert Covington had not had a great series and we had booked Robert Covington, and we were fearful that the reaction would not be a good one. Yeah. And this is Covington's introduction.
Are we all lathered up and ready? Because a few years ago, the Sixers didn't have anybody who could shoot.
Nope.
And they signed... Oh, shit!
It's hard to convey how loud it was.
Woo. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Covington. Now, Rob, we were hoping you weren't going to be able to beat.
That moment, I think, says a lot about everybody. The Sixers had just disappointingly lost in the playoffs. Covington had a bad series, also disappeared off the face of the earth for a few days. We weren't able to find him. We were actually sort of relieved he was there.
Yep.
Was told he was in Tennessee. He wasn't in Tennessee. Plane ticket never got used anyway. But him getting that moment, I thought was great. It was just it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't think that the audio conveys how loud it was in there. It was so loud.
Yeah.
To go from we're scared that people are going to boo him to a thunderous ovation was very cool. I do also think that it was sort of emblematic of the time it was. The Sixers went from the process to should be contending happened so fast.
Right.
There was the Embiid's first fully healthy year, which was also then Simmons' first year, and they win their last 16 games. All of a sudden, I think they were the 3 seed, right? And it was very quickly they could make some noise in the playoffs, and we didn't get to have the hey, finally we're good.
Yeah,
this is nice. It was immediately expectations. And
people talked about them winning the East that year.
Yeah, it was, which I feel I always like to sort of have a little treat for myself, like slow it down. Like I don't want to go 0 to 60. Like let me like build up and like ease into it. And the expectations happen so fast and the disappointment happens so fast. And I think if this series was still a little early in that, but if it happened a couple years later, I do not think our fan base would be as supportive, even of a guy like Covington or whoever, because we've now been through that disappointment. But this was like the narrow window where that could still happen. But I do frequently think, man, there was never a time when it was just like, hey, we're happy to be here. Like what the Thunder probably felt last year, like had they made the play-in or next year if they like even like win a round or something. Like the Sixers got to quickly, they should be like the favorites or second favorites in the East. And then it just set up this years and years of disappointment of not getting there. It would have been nice to be young and fun for a little bit longer than we were.
At the end of that lottery party, Pablo Torre agreed to marry two of our listeners on the stage.
True.
This is what it sounded like.
Welcome to the strangest, most wonderful, and most well-attended wedding of all time. Thousands of us have gathered here today. We are among family, friends, Robert Covington, and most importantly, two very special people standing before me now, Lauren and Zeke.
Lauren and Zeke went on to quote Sam Hinkie in their vows and be wed in front of all of us. I still get the emails that are reminding Pablo that he is a pastor in the Universal Life Church, which I think he can still marry people. I don't think that expires. But we had an engagement and we had a marriage. I do believe Lauren and Zeke are still married. So good vibes.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So then Elton Brand is named. We had the summer, we had the Zaire Smith trade. And then Elton Brand is named general manager in the fall. And just a few days afterwards, convinced him to appear as a surprise guest at Live Ricky 3.
Have a new general manager.
That's right.
After an extensive search.
Yeah.
And Elton Brand, the old school Chevy, is the new general manager.
Yeah, former Sixer.
And I'm thinking like he is not like he's a good dude. He's a smart dude.
Yep.
I loved him as a Sixer.
Mm-hmm.
He's not really that experienced.
Sure.
Right. I don't think he.
Man, that's a good crowd.
Ladies and gentlemen, process Sixer, old school Chevy, Sixers fucking general manager, Elton Brand.
All right. Nice.
Wow.
Even the dog bed guys are standing up.
Yeah, they're sitting on dog beds over there. They really are.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So they asked Joel Embiid today what his first reaction was when he heard that you were general manager, and he was like, I remember dunking on him 2 years ago. I guess my question is, do you remember him dunking on you 2 years ago?
Listen. I will sacrifice my body for the process, all right?
That's right. Wow.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. But I do remember lighting him up too for about 2 weeks.
Yes.
Till I couldn't anymore. He took over for the last 5 months, but I did have a good 2 week window. I was hot.
So there was also a moment, which I'm sure you remember, where he said something about a collar and you quietly said normal collar. And then I more loudly said, that's a normal collar. And the crowd started chanting normal collar. And he looked at me, and listening back to it, he was very serious. He goes, "That's a low blow. This is over. I'm done."
He said that?
And he continued. He powered through. I love Elton to death, and him doing that was a great moment. But I felt you said it, and
you're not going to say it. He knew what he was getting into.
He did know what he was getting into. He ended up being our first surprise guest. Of course, Brett Brown later a surprise guest. So I would say the strangest live pod we ever did was this one.
Yeah, all right. Welcome to the Rights To Ricky Sanchez podcast. Thank you. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who has, this is the first time you've ever sat to the left of me when we recorded a podcast. Yeah. Mike Levin, ladies and gentlemen.
Guys, wow.
This is truly the wildest shit we've ever done.
It's all been building to this.
Yeah. So this is for everyone. It was for you, obviously, but for everyone at home who couldn't come to the trip. We thought, should we do a live pod at a bar, or should we do a live pod? So we get to the hotel, and I'm like, I'll find a place to do a live pod. And Joe from Fans of Philly was like, you should do it in the pool. So I went to the pool, and it was too noisy and too humid. And then I asked the hotel, do you guys have any open ballrooms or workspaces? And they said no. And notice all the doors closed on all of the empty ballrooms and workspaces. So we decided, for those at home, there's free breakfast here at this Embassy Suites, and we're doing it outside of the free breakfast, outside of the ballroom, which is obviously busy. And everyone is sitting cross-legged, eating their breakfast in a hotel hallway.
And there are people here who don't know what the podcast is.
Yeah, a lot of people who don't know what the podcast is.
Think that we're in some kind of class right now.
Yeah. Welcome to Stupid 101, ladies and gentlemen.
There we go. The live pod from Minnesota in the hotel, which outside breakfast, which would later be interrupted by a older racist man.
Yeah, the racist guy. Yeah, I remember the racist guy. That guy was tough.
That was a funny trip because the Timberwolves would not sell us tickets because they were worried we were going to come and boo. So we had to promise we wouldn't boo and donate a large sum of money to their charities to allow us to buy the tickets. They actually said that if we bought the tickets online, they would notice where the zip codes were, and they would cancel tickets if they were from the Philadelphia area.
That's real loser energy. Real deeply loser energy in a way that makes me certain that Jimmy Butler was right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Jimmy Butler, the last game that Jimmy Butler ever played as a Sixer.
Obviously, things they could have done differently in the game and plays that could have gone different ways and guys they could play better and guys that, but I don't think the Sixers players or coach have anything to be ashamed of after that series. That is a really, really, really good team that they played, or at least a good team. The top four teams in the East were pretty evenly matched this year. And what it came down to was one shot on the road against that team by one of the, if not the best player in the NBA right now, one of the 2 or 3 best players in the NBA on a shot, man. And sometimes the shots go down for them and sometimes they go down for us. But I thought the Sixers fought tonight, and I thought a lot of things we could take back, but I think they should be proud of the effort they put forth through the playoffs and through this year.
Yeah. That was tough to sit through. It bounced on the rim 5 times. It was a contested fadeaway jumper from the corner with a 7'2" guy bearing down on him.
I just hear the difference in the end of the season from us. Obviously, you despondent, but you have gone from, I went from proud and, encouraged slowly to I'm glad it's over. And then you have gone from despondent and sad, which is what you were there, to just sort of angry as it ends now.
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously a very specific one. I was laying down on the ground in my parents' condo, being very upset about that. That was a tough one. I think the Fultz pick fills me with the most like remorse and sadness. And I think the Kawhi shot is like the universe fractured on that day, and we went down the wrong path
because of that
from
shot.
then. Yeah, since then we've just been in sort of like this fake reality that hasn't that had we been able to just sort of jump to the right reality, things would be a lot better. Where they obviously won in overtime, and then at least come close, at least get to the conference finals to give ourselves something to feel. That's tough. The Kawhi shot, the Hawks game 7, and now the Celtics game 6 and 7, Mother's Day.
Do you remember the
Really
Kawhi
bad.
shot? Like, do you remember watching
very
it,
much.
feeling it? Yeah,
Very much. Yeah, I dropped to my knees like I watched a loved one die. Like it just very like almost like a very very dramatic sort of poorly written like mobster movie.
I remember sitting there on my couch, and my wife Val has sort of, when our relationship started, she would go to Sixers games with me, and then now she just doesn't care. She is. But I remember watching that game, and her looking at me after that shot, wasn't paying attention to the game, and she said, "What happened?" And I said, "Look at that." And she saw the replay, and she goes, "Oh no!" It's just, I was just stunned. I just couldn't believe it was over. That there was, just like in a lot of playoff series, in the Celtics series this year as well, there were moments in that series where I was just sure they were going to win that series.
Yeah.
I was just fucking sure.
Yeah, game 4 was tough. It turns out reliving the last 10 years of a relatively unsatisfying era of Sixers basketball makes me sad.
Yeah. We will get to the next part of it right after we talk about Briggs Auction, Briggs auction.com. I know what it's like to win a Briggs Auction. It's fucking juice. You get fucking excited, you get competitive, you want to win the auction. CJ has won a couple of auctions.
I saw that Overbrook High School jacket.
The varsity jacket?
That looks sick.
Yeah, they had that closed yesterday. I don't know how much it closed for, but they had a varsity basketball Overbrook High School jacket from the 50s, I think, that closed
60s.
yesterday.
Yeah.
The stuff you see in the Briggs auctions, you're not going to see anywhere else. And that goes from furniture to clothing to collectibles to art, all that kind of stuff. There is, Mike, I know you haven't been a Flyers fan in 20 years, but there's a signed Flyers Lindros jersey.
So I'm still not. I'm still too hurt.
You're not going back.
No, I can't go back.
As I mentioned, the collectibles section is great, and there's new auctions basically every week. They were a little slower for a little while, but now every week. This week there's Discovery Auction. There's also the Jim Booley auction, which is a bunch of art pieces from an artist, craftsman Jim Booley, and then next week the wine and spirits auctions, which are always really cool. Just go to briggsauction.com. Just peruse it. That's all I'm telling you. There's cool shit all the time. BRIGGS auction.com, Briggs Auction. And if you are somebody who is downsizing, who maybe says, I have a fucking estate I need to auction, send an email to info@briggsauction.com. There's also the app in the App Store and Google Play, BRIGGS auction.com. That is Briggs Auction. March 12th, we were scheduled to do a podcast. We did a podcast. It was a different podcast than we had ever done.
Welcome to the Rights To Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who is just marching right into the field of 64 jigsaws as the NBA cancels it or postpones its season. That is Mike Levin.
This is why we waited. You keep trying to get me to do it, and I said no. We'll know when it's the right moment.
Yeah,
and very darkly, we have come to the moment. We're not going to do it in this podcast, but definitely we'll have time now that the NBA is canceled. We are not going to be talking about the Sixers for a little bit. What a time! What an interesting, crazy time to be Alive, a person in the world talking about the Sixers on a podcast. Who the fuck gives a shit? I have no idea.
Would end up being one of the more interesting eras of the pod as we'll get into the guests. Had a ton of guests that night. I don't think what's funny is the wrong word, but we had a live pod scheduled for week or two later. Flip the switch,
and it's never flipped.
Yeah. And
sort of like the switch is at the bottom of the ocean, and just like never to be seen again. Excavators in the future will try to find the switch to maybe one day flip it so that the Sixers can win something, for fuck's sake. But unfortunately, they will fail and they will die.
And that was right around when it was like the week of the Shake Milton game, right? Or 2 weeks after the Shake Milton game, I think against the Clippers. It was right around.
I think it was pretty close. I think that was end of January.
Okay,
is my recollection of that. The Shake you're talking about against the Clippers against
the Clippers.
Doc?
Yeah. So we were supposed to do the live pod, and I think that I'm sure we even mentioned it on the pod. There were a couple of times where you're like, I don't know if I want to get on a plane. You were like the COVID thing, and I was like, oh, come on, you fucking baby.
Yeah, everything. Yes, I remember this. Yeah,
I was like, it's not a big deal. Come on. And as it turned out, it was a big deal. But as it turned out as well for the pod, I thought it was, people still to this day mentioned us doing it at that point. And I thought it was a nice way to connect with everyone. We ended up with a ton of guests.
People still ask, like, how do you do 2 podcasts a week all year about the Sixers?
Mm-hmm.
And I always don't know how to answer that. But really, when it's 2 podcasts a week and the Sixers aren't even around, it's not even like there's an off season. They can't be making moves. They're just not there. And we still do 2 podcasts a week. I think it was just like, well, now there's nothing that can stop 2 podcasts a week. It is impossible to stop. COVID could not stop it. As an unmovable object.
Well, and when you look back at the length of those podcasts, I think they were like twice as long.
We had nothing else to do.
Yeah, we had nothing. We had our dads on. We had G Love on. Now, there was one person that we had chased for a while. And on July 30th, as he was locked up in Disney World, Joel Embiid was on the Ricky.
Yeah, that was
I'm going to start off with a really tough question. I want to know, really getting into it right away. Why do you sometimes pull your shorts out of your butthole like you're picking a wedgie during your free throw routine?
Finally someone asked.
We got to know.
I mean, it just started as a joke. I'm a tennis fan. Nadal, Rafael Nadal, he's known for doing that. Then I'm a tennis fan. I like Federer. I like watching the Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, all those guys. So I just felt like, sometimes, we all have those problems, and, and you feel the need to put your fingers in there just to like pull it out. And sometimes it happens, and it just happens to happen at the free throw when I'm at the free throw line. So every time I'm at the free throw line, I want to make sure I'm relaxed and I'm as comfortable as possible. So you just gotta pick it up and knock down the free throws.
you can't be comfortable when you got fabric coming up your butt. You just can't do it.
You gotta be relaxed, especially when you're in the tie game, fourth quarter. You gotta make sure you're locked in and relaxed.
That's right.
I love him. I love him so much, man. It's just hearing that. I just want him to win a championship so bad. I want it for us. That whole podcast, he was smiling the whole time. He was having a really nice time, and that made me happy.
It's one of the ones that you should watch because his audio reaction, like there are some questions you ask him that he can't really answer, but you see him smiling and laughing, and it's one of the ones that is worth watching rather than listening to.
Come on. Can he just win one?
Just one.
I did not take enough value from the MVP. I guess it felt nice at the time, but all the good feelings of him winning MVP now just feels like embarrassing that he won an MVP despite the fact that we haven't had playoff success, and it feels more like an anchor around his neck.
Yep.
That he did win one.
But he won one.
But he won one, and in the future that will matter. But right now, I just feel like it doesn't until he gets further in the playoffs. And I just have such affection for him as a human being, and I really want him to win a championship for him and for us.
Me as well. The other thing that I think is really funny to look is when he pops up on the screen. Your and my reaction was like, "Oh my God, he really came!"
Yeah,
like he was really there.
Yeah.
So we had Andrew Yang on the pod. We had Hassan Bennett, who went to jail for murder and then argued his own case and got out. Philadelphia's own Hassan Bennett. Amos mentioned him. We had Helen Gim. I'm trying to think who else. We had a lot of guests. We had Daryl Morey, of course. Did I mention Daryl? And we also had Chuck Klosterman. So Chuck's been on the pod a few times, and he was on the pod for the podcast was almost 2 hours long. But at the end, we asked a question that irritated him that everyone needed us to ask.
It would be remiss if we didn't ask you, and when we mentioned you were going to be on the pod, one of our good friends of the pod that listens to the pod, a gentleman named, we only know him as Kill a Cow, often talked about your podcast with Chris Ryan, Music Exists, and he waited for the end to find out whether you determined whether music exists or not. So what do you think the final verdict is?
Well, the podcast wasn't called Does Music Exist? What the fuck? Real genius insight by that guy. It's like, this podcast called Music Exist. Does it exist? It's like, yeah. Well, good for that guy. His name did he kill a cow? Is someone who killed a cow? Is that what his thing is?
His last name is sort of like that, I think. I don't know what it's.
Oh, I thought maybe it's like he was famous because he killed a cow. Because it's like there was always, I don't know if this is true or not, but they used to say that the reason the Crips were called the Crips is because one of the kind of founding members crippled a guy. So they called themselves the Crips. I don't know if that's true. That could be totally urban legend. So I thought maybe this guy, this famous kill a cow guy, it's like he killed a cow, and people are like, this guy, we need to make him famous. Yeah,
that becomes his whole personality.
He was really pissed off at that question.
Really a joy for our boy Evan to hear, though.
Yeah, for sure. So Sixers lose in the playoffs and against the Celtics, and they get swept. Ben Simmons was hurt. Brett Brown got fired. The Sixers were in a state of flux, but in March of So then Sixers have the next season. They end up beating the Wizards in the first round, playing the Atlanta Hawks in the second round, and losing in the Ben Simmons doesn't dunk game. And this is like sort of the moment. I think 2020 with Simmons hurt, we were all expecting them to lose. In 21 was when it turned to anger.
Not good enough. Not a good team. It became pretty clear over the last few games. I was hoping they would just sort of survive this series and regroup and look better. And look like, that this is the team we watched all year. But it's been clear for 4 games now that they have no offense. They don't have any sets. They don't have any easy things to run. They don't have any passing fluidity. They turn the ball over too much. Careless turnovers. They get easily bullied out of their spots.
In the end, this team's forgetting about whatever he's going through right now that makes him pass up dunks underneath the basket and shoot 30% from the line. This organization's commitment to Ben Simmons as the point guard of the basketball team is the keystone of the roster problems. It is the largest issue.
Even if they called him a power forward, it wouldn't matter. He'd be doing nothing out there.
But no. But here's the difference. Well, first of all, he couldn't because he wouldn't be able to, point power forward, shoot corner threes, all that kind of stuff. But here's the difference is that they would know they needed a starting point guard. the imaginary scenario that we've all painted ourselves, and everybody tried to talk themselves into it. Oh, you're the person with the ball in their hands doesn't need to be able to get a shot for himself, and it was wrong. And from before Daryl, and every leadership group, from Colangelo to then Brett Brown to then Elton Brand to then Daryl, and Daryl tried to trade him, and now they're stuck in this fucking position where I don't know what he's worth. Rightly or wrongly, everybody was teasing me a month ago because of what I said about Simmons and Tyler Hero. I don't even know if he's worth Tyler Hero right now. I don't even know if he's worth Tyler. So now this has gotten into this position. And as a person, I'll be honest with you, as you said, as a person, I feel bad for him. He is a mid-20s guy who, this is a hard situation to be in as a public figure, where he's tried to shove it in everybody's faces up until then. But right now he's going through a hard time. But at the basis of the hard time that he's going through is that he never improved on any of the things he needed to improve on. Never. And my opinion, not yours. We don't have to argue about it or anything. There's a lot to talk about with the team, but I believe the keystone of their issues is their commitment to him as the primary playmaker on the team. And my fear is that now he was once their greatest trade chip, and now I don't know. I don't know if he's a $30 million anchor or a trade chip.
So you mentioned Fultz. It's really like Fultz and Simmons, right? I mean, of all the errors or all the things that it could have gone differently, I just feel like if one of those two guys had truly worked out in the way that we had hoped.
Yeah, I mean, I think had Fultz worked out, that would have changed things for Simmons as well.
It would have taken pressure off of him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This is relitigating old upsetting arguments. Yeah, I mean, like,
not really getting it, just talking about it.
Yeah, just reflecting, I guess, on how upsetting all of it is. It wasn't just that he didn't shoot, although that was obviously a big part of it and the most identifiable part of it. It was that he just stopped trying to do stuff. He stopped trying to go to the basket. He was fading away. He didn't develop his dribble drive game to get by anybody. It was just he would drive to the nail or a little bit into the paint, and then he would turn around and look for somebody to pass to. There wasn't anything else that he did on offense.
Well, and
that was all.
And because he never added anything, all of the things that he did do became so easy to defend.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just to put the head down thing. And
teams still doubled him when he drove, and I was like, I don't know why they're doing this. Right. He's not going to do anything with it. He just wants you to double him so he can pass it out to somebody else. He didn't have anything. He got worse. His skills deteriorated. His confidence deteriorated. It's added to the list. I mean, at least we did get good years with him in a way that Fultz was always weird and uncomfortable. There were very good Ben moments. And he was, I don't know if he is anymore, but he was a very special defensive player.
Well, that first game against Washington, the first game that he really played, the opening game of that season, I don't even think they won.
I don't remember it.
But everybody was like, oh, shit, they're going to be good. We did have moments with him, for sure.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, he performed, he shut down Luka a lot. He's probably Luka's best defensive antagonist in the league, at least was. Anyway.
And now he's debatably the worst contract in the NBA.
He really might be. Again. He really might be. And he's still putting out, I don't know if him or his people or whoever are still putting out fucking shirtless workout pictures and shirtless and gym stuff. And you're like, God, how are we still doing this? How are we still doing this? It is like wearing your Letterman's jacket into your 70s. How are we still there? I mean, is he going to be like a 55-year-old retiree and have a shirt with him in a very specific sort of electrolyte water, sitting on a thing with a towel over, and just dumping it on his head, just thirst traps. He's just thirst traps. He's not a basketball player anymore. He's just thirst traps.
I'm sure you know Nick Castellanos bought his house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had to redo the entire game room because it had all this neon Ben Simmons stuff in it.
Yeah. Simo the Savage.
Yeah. So
It's
a couple more things that look, if we did a real, there were so many great moments. A couple more things, and then I just want to read a couple.
Sorry,
of the people.
last thing. It's the outward display of you're posing as the most confident person in the world,
right?
While then the reality is the opposite of that. And if he was just more vulnerable, and there weren't these two, he's trying to appear like he's this guy.
By the way,
he's clearly not.
With Fultz was vulnerable. I think
Totally.
Yeah.
And it always felt just so fake, especially towards the end. And then I think there's that Embiid quote where he's talking about Harden. I think he was talking to, I think it was Rachel Nichols, where he's like, I hope he comes back. He's my friend. We're going to be friends forever. He just never said that about Ben, because I think he thought he was extremely fake. So Joel's not fake, at least. That's something you could definitely say.
Yeah, well, I almost wish he was maybe a little more fake.
A little bit would be nice, maybe. Might help him out.
Doing this podcast has afforded us a bunch of different opportunities to do things I think we would never do otherwise. We were invited by Cal State Fullerton in March of 21. I'm going a little backwards because I missed this, to be part of a keynote conversation.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This will be the keynote event for the 14th Annual Conferences on Literature, Culture, and Languages for the Department of Modern Languages and Literatures at Cal State Fullerton. Of course, I need to introduce our keynote guests. So we're joined today by Spike Eskin and Mike Levin. I am honored that both of you are here to join us today. Spike is a brand manager at 94 WIP in Philadelphia. And we're also joined by Mike Levin, who is a Los Angeles-based writer for television comedy. And Mike has, among his credits, a number of sitcoms. And I have to say early and often the name, right? I can't overlook the fact that the reason why you're both here together with us is you are co-hosts of one of the all-time great podcasts, the Rights to Ricky Sanchez.
That is a real professor at a real college, a real keynote.
I love that made the cut.
Great.
Cal State Fullerton, very, very funny. I don't know how helpful we were as, I don't know. What were we trying to do?
I don't know.
I don't know if we accomplished it. Neither of us knew the assignment, but we showed up. It was over Zoom. We answered questions. They sent us a hat.
The hats are great. The hat is great. One more clip. And this happened in January of 2022. Right around January 2022, the Sixers announced a partnership with a company called Colorstar Technology.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are weird things about Colorstar, given that it used to be a concrete company, and then it became a metaverse company. It had no discernible products. Its CEO didn't seem to exist and was using a computer avatar. So we sent CJ to do a deep dive on Colorstar. CJ, could you play the Colorstar clip?
On December 20th, the 76ers announced the partnership with Colorstar Technology. Colorstar is an entertainment technology company with a global network that focuses on the application of tech and artificial intelligence in the entertainment industry.
So I don't know what that means.
So the former CEO of Colorstar was named Basil Wilson and resigned 6 days ago, making Luke the third CEO in under 1 year. He has multiple poses. This one, he's sitting on thin air.
So casual. If you're a CEO, you need to have armor.
It was reported that Basil Wilson Wilson resigned due to health issues. I'm not putting anything out there, but maybe Luke had something to do with it.
Not existing is a very serious health problem that people are dealing with.
When you go to his education tab, is that it says he has an MBA in destructive growth.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me. Obviously, when you're trying to grow, you want to destroy things in your wake.
He just graduated, so Lucas, congratulations on your new position as the CEO.
Oh, he just graduated this month?
Per his LinkedIn, yes. Formerly a professional company specializing in concrete production and education services.
So they went from maybe the most fungible thing there is, building concrete, to the least fungible thing.
It focuses on educational courses such as Shake Your Hips and Hum Practice.
As an entertainment professional, I need these things.
They also have HTML style press releases that are completely cut off.
Pixels are so expensive these days. Isaiah Joe is going to get abducted, and he's just going to show up in the metaverse in a Color World jersey and not be able to be escaped or found. Is this a Tad Brown thing? Like,
What are they doing?
What are they doing? Can anybody just become a Sixers partnership? Does it cost like $20?
Scott O'Neal would never.
Scott O'Neal would never do this, and I was so pro Tad.
The Sixers later, we would announce, we broke the story that they ended their partnership with Colorstar.
Why?
Breach of contract due to not existing, I think.
Interesting. A law firm that specializes in these types of things.
Yep.
There was a Defector piece about an updating about what's going on there. They're back.
Yep.
They list like Britney Spears and Kate Winslet as part of their like founders, but their pictures of those people are very clearly not Britney Spears or Kate Winslet. Also, like the quotes they gave are the same. Is a really, I encourage everyone that it remains interested in the Colorstar saga to read the Defector piece.
And shout out to JP Maley, who came on the pod and did an even deeper dive on
one of the deepest dives. Yeah, that's right.
One that's ever happened on the podcast.
Yeah, that's a good one too. That's a good one. It's a good one too. Why are we cursed with these people?
Great for content.
I mean, I guess every every fan base that doesn't win feels like, oh, there's weird stuff. But like, listen to all the amount of over the last 10 years of how many things have happened and of how many things we've had to deal with. And I think we barely even scratched the surface. I think there's a lot that we didn't even get to.
Oh, tons. So we did post the asking for favorite memories on the Rights To Ricky Sanchez Reddit, which is nearing 1,000 members. Just a few things. I'll read them off. You let me know if you have any memory of them.
That was a great edit, by the way, CJ. That was delightful. The whole podcast should be like that. Just cut it together in like a minute and a half and be like, that's what they said. All right, see ya.
Only our good parts. Yeah,
just the good parts. Cut the rest.
Yeah, actually, for the recorded version, why don't we do the live version like this? The recorded version's 2.5 minutes of
that's perfect.
Just us being funny and poignant. This came from Towie on the Reddit. The guy who emailed in about how he was recently married and bought a house together with his new wife, and she suddenly told him she wanted more space to live in the house by herself. The fact that he didn't know what this meant, and Mike and Spike so really telling him his marriage was over, was sad but also hilarious.
I don't remember it being a marriage. I thought it was they just bought a house. I don't.
Yeah, I think you're right. CJ, can you play that clip? We actually
no, poor this poor guy.
Dear Spike, Mike, and CJ, this past spring, my girlfriend of 6 years and I decided to buy a house together. I just graduated from medical school and will be making money, but my current debt makes a traditional mortgage difficult. She paid for the closing costs and down payment. I need to emphasize here that this was a shared, agreed upon decision, and she was completely comfortable doing this. 2 days before closing, she told me out of nowhere she did not want me to move in with her. She wanted to, quote, feel independent and, quote, experience life on her own for some time. She was also concerned that our relationship wasn't, quote, growing the way that it should. She was also suddenly began throwing it in my face that it was her house and not mine, calling me her tenant. And she posted about the house on social media without me being mentioned or shown. Since it was so last minute, I did move in and try to give her some more space and time for us to work it out. But after a couple weeks, she still felt this way. And after a lot of shared tears and lamentation, I moved out. We agreed to not talk about things for 2 to 4 weeks and reassess after that. This was a week ago. She asked me to come over after a week, despite our agreed upon moratorium, to talk about how she felt. She told me she misses me, wants me back. But if I'm not going to come back, she feels she can't live in the new house alone. Should I get back with her or say, ciao, Bella?
Oh boy, that thing is over. That is tough, man. I think I would call it. I think the being married is, you get a divorce, whatever, it's fine. But like buying a house is that's tougher. That is a tougher thing. So
It is.
if there is concern,
she posted the house without him.
That may not, and you're not that. I would say, I would thank her for not doing this afterwards, and say, go with God. That is a tough one. That is a tough one. Sorry that happened. She seems like she's going through something. I wish her well.
Oh my God.
That is a tough one, and I would, by the skin of your teeth, thank her and head on out of there.
Toast a glass of James Harden wine to the relationship you had and just move on. Life is hard and relationships are hard. It's her house now. Like, you don't even have to fucking worry about it. It doesn't seem like she paid for everything. You're not on the mortgage. So
calling you tenant as a joke, funny, get it, working with it. We can roll with that. Fun. But if it's not a joke, tell your landlord that you would no longer like to date them. No, thank you, ma'am. That's tough. That's tough.
He was at Live Ricky 5. We gave him
Oh, really?
ticket.
Okay.
He was. He's doing fine. He
okay. Shit.
So we ended up, Mortgage CS actually ended up buying a couple of extra tickets and asked me if there was anyone I thought could use them. And we got an email from the tenants, a couple that was a friend of the tenant looking for a ticket. And I was like, we'll send the tenant. So the tenant was there, seemed to be doing fine.
Friend of the tenant.
Yeah. A couple other ones. This came from Silver Ad 4618. Every time Spike and Mike get in a big fight over something dumb, I really think the podcast is going to end for good. The last one was about all NBA positions versus positionless, and it came out of nowhere, and the anger and exasperation was insane. Love those moments, but they scare me too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to get it out.
Yeah.
Fucking, get it out.
Yeah. That the positions really came out of nowhere. It started immediately. It started hot.
It went 0-60 so quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. But happens every once in a while. You do a podcast for 10 years. I would say, as far as like big arguments like that for a while, I would say it's like about one a year, which doesn't seem like too much.
No. Honestly, I tell people this all the time. You talk to somebody about the same fucking topic for 3 hours a week for 10 years and
a
tell me you're
frustrating
never
topic.
gonna.
Not a topic that is rewarding in any way.
Yeah. So it's not that serious at a funeral jigsaw came from Blue Devil TTP. That was a great jigsaw. Also the jigsaw, I don't know if you remember this, it came from a child, I think a teenager. His dad sent it in. Is you have two choices. You can either sleep with your mother, but she has the brain of Alyssa,
No, I didn't like this. I don't even like hearing about it now.
or sleep with the body of your significant other, who has the brain of your mother.
Neither.
AU wrote about this week. AU eulogizing his father has really stayed with me. I was touched by his words and struck by how deeply I felt for him and how much he cared about this community.
Love AU. Great piece.
Great piece. So AU's dad passed in 2018 suddenly. AU came on the pod in 2018 to talk about it. He was buried in the Ricky shirt, even though AU continues to remind people that he didn't actually like the podcast, which I think is just AU, just a shiv in the midsection there. But he wrote a great piece about how the podcast, he's never going to allow the podcast not to be good because of that connection. And it was a great piece by AU. Runner up saying Tommy Alter's only skill is having no shame.
I've really taken it to Tommy.
Yeah,
I've really taken it to Tommy. One of these days, me and Tommy are gonna run into each other, and I'm gonna cave really quick.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. He's a producer, right? Isn't that his
Something.
day job? Yeah. The Nobody Cares About Paul Millsap, still class. That was a great moment. The random intellectual summer when we had Sean Carroll and Chuck Klosterman.
Sean Carroll really left his mark here with the Ship of Theseus.
He did. The Ship of Theseus thing came from the Sean Carroll discussion. Mike in the Dark shirtless. The We're Fucked rant about the Celtics. Environmental Tap 7192 says, it's got to be the pod where Mike was on painkillers.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Applejack Cinnamon Man says it's a minor moment, but by far my favorite one. After Markel's first summer league, Spike said he looked Evan Turner-ish.
Mm-hmm. It's the worst thing we could say about somebody, really.
Yes, Evan
Because
Turner.
the feeling of like, man, they're taking a lot of mid-range jumpers and they're getting blocked.
Yep.
That's not so good.
The 2015 lottery party, this one was at Buffalo Wild Wings, when everyone simultaneously and completely organically went nuts when the broadcast showed Vlade Divac.
I love that. That was what a random memory, though, and it really was true. Everybody went nuts for Vlade for no reason at the time. I think knowing that the picks would eventually swap.
Yes.
And then that would happen. That was beautiful.
A couple more. Philly Jeezy says raising the hinky banner at the lottery party has to be on the Rushmore. So iconic. That was a very strange and great moment, of course.
Beautiful.
Spike reading passages from Scott O'Neill's book, who was to Mike, who was forced to listen to every word while stuck in a detention cell in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Obviously, a great one. After a jigsaw, I totally can't recall, in which Mike chose to have horrible IBS once a year, he got into a tangent explaining his reasoning, since he has a sensitive stomach and basically says any type of wet Mexican food sets him off. He was so descriptive and so serious that I was losing it while listening.
It wasn't just Mexican food, but yeah, but hey, Body Bio Gut Plus.
Yep.
Now I had real ice cream last night. I'm feeling great.
Couple more. This came from OK Opportunity 9302. Mike ranting after a win that he... No, I don't remember this, but it does.
I don't remember this at all.
It does sound like something you would say. Mike ranting after a win that he was going to anal the Celtics, quote, consensual.
I don't remember it at all. It sounds like something I would say, but I don't remember it. And in what context that would be worthwhile to say.
And I thank Electrical Farmer 88 because this is a moment that I would have forgotten if somebody didn't bring it up, but now I remember. I wish I remembered when it happened. Mike's shadow on the wall looking like a penguin.
Yeah, that did happen for a little bit here.
I will say, let's end on the did you have the Coven clip? You did put it somewhere, right? I believe. Okay. So, we had, by the way, I already mentioned it. We got a lot of kind words. We did the first part of this on Wednesday. And I just want another thank you, as we got even more nice people saying nice things about what the podcast has meant to them. And, we've been through, it's crazy in that, like, you and I have changed positions in life, right? We've both gotten married during the podcast, both bought homes during the podcast. Like, I've moved. There's been a lot there, and we've gone through a lot of changes in life, but so have so many of the listeners. And it's really nice to know when people say that we've been like this stabilizing force. Just that we're always there, I think, and just existing is enough. But for something that has seemed so unstable, which is what we're covering, it's nice to know that people have felt that way about it. It means a lot, We heard a lot of nice things over the last few days. And 10 years is a really fucking long time, Mike.
It is. It is a long time. 10 years ago, I was a writer's assistant on How I Met Your Mother. I had this pod and very little money. And now I've made a nice career for myself as writing on several staffs of shows. And now I'm on strike and I have only this pod as my entire income. So nothing has changed and everything has changed.
So I'm trying to remember so in the lead up to Live Ricky 5, when we were doing a vote for the Process Hall of Fame, one of them was the Ricky moment. And the top two vote getters were Daryl Morey, appearing on the podcast from the bubble when he was the president of basketball operations for the Rockets. And the other one was Me and Kyrie, which was the Tony T song from, I would say that is Tony T's best appearance, right? It has the January 6th story and Me and Kyrie. It's just a fucking, just completely, I sent it to my sister-in-law, who doesn't know much about the podcast. She was asking me about it yesterday, and I sent her Me and Kyrie, and she was like, what is this at all? It's so hard to explain. But anyway, so the voting was Daryl, Me and Kyrie, and Daryl from the bubble won. And we received this video in response.
this brings me no joy. I am at an undisclosed location, and I am an anonymous member of COVEN. Count our votes even now. We know this election was fraudulent. Harold Morey ain't no way beat Tony and Kyrie Storm, okay? And we are taking action. We've kidnapped CJ, and we will not bring him back until we get a recount and have fucking vote. Harold Morey, you asshole. You might be the coach now, but you ain't gonna be the coach next year when they lose again, okay? COVEN forever. And CJ's in trouble. You better fix this shit now. COVEN forever.
As a response, many people have declared their allegiance to COVEN.
Wow.
CJ was kidnapped. A T-shirt was released.
Yeah, CJ with the knife, right? Unbelievable.
Says a lot.
Countervotes even now.
Yeah, even now. We've discussed whether it's even countervotes even now or countervotes even now.
It's definitely the second one.
I thought
It's like time to count them even. You weren't counting them even before. Now you're supposed to count them even. And it is pronounced Coven, and the guy is pronouncing it wrong. Just like he pronounced them Harrell. That Harrell is the coach.
He was right about them losing again, by the way.
Yeah, well, that was... What a guy.
The best. All right. Well, thank you for sitting through all of that. I can't wait for the Ricky 20-year anniversary show. CJ, I'm going to need some more help from you going through audio at that point. Keep this folder ready for that.
Maybe by 20 years, Philip and Kristen will be real.
By the way, you announced on the last pod a couple of things. It's amazing. You mentioned on the last pod that you and I are cousins.
Yeah, through marriage, yeah.
Through marriage. Which
many distant cousins, yeah.
Which we didn't know.
Yeah.
And you also announced that Philip and Kristen were not real, rather.
Right.
The Philip and Kristen thing has sent shockwaves.
Has it really?
And nobody has mentioned the fact that we're cousins somehow. I guess they expect all Jewish people from the Philadelphia area to be cousins, but
yeah, reasonable.
I'm stunned at how many smart people thought that Philip and Kristen were real the entire time.
Well, I think it's because it was initially like, oh, it would be funny if we had an intern
right
on the podcast.
Yes.
And then it has gotten less funny now that we have a not just an intern, but someone that is a producer and that we pay.
Right.
And then he comes on the podcast sometimes and says stuff and does lovely presentations about cement companies that sponsor the Sixers. And the other two were just sending emails saying, "Hey, it's Kristen. I'm doing an AMA or something," and we're just and sending newsletters or whatever. But unfortunately, it was just Spike or I.
Yeah.
That's I'm so sorry to break that to people, and then I felt guilty about it for a while, I think, and so I'm happy to have it off my chest.
Don Steele, who is a member of the New York contingent, the New York process dressers, who have donated a lot of money, and Don was actually at the wedding lottery party. He was at a couple of them. Sent me a message today. He was like, "Yeah, but I was DMing with Philip about that lottery party," and I'm like, "Don, I don't know what to tell you." There was a guy who acted like Philip, but there was no Philip. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's pretty good. Wow, this has all been a ruse.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
at
we
least
don't exist either.
All of us exist. Everyone that you've seen exists. The Sixers don't, unfortunately. That is fake. Also, we made that up.
Well, we'll see you next time. I actually don't think this Harden thing is. I would imagine that it doesn't resolve itself until at least the Lillard thing resolves itself. So I think we are in hostage mode until that happens.
Wow. I'm never more comfortable than when I'm bound and gagged by this team. So feeling great. Ready to go.
All right. We'll talk to you next time. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah. You know, lick face.